Good evening, everybody. Rob here at WesternPacificWeather.com. Currently the 15th of October, 2010, right near midnight, going into the 16th of October, right around 15 Zulu. That is Japan Standard Time, but Philippine time, currently right around 22:30, going on 23:30. So just something to note here. We are looking at 15 whiskey right now, moving off to the west-northwest, right around 10 knots. Otherwise, though, much of the Western Pacific is relatively clear, but right now, though, this is one of those updates where we're going to talk about one specific area out here, and that is this storm right here, Megi. Now, currently, we have Megi here moving off to the west-northwest, right around 10 knots, but current winds right now are actually right around 90, gusting up to 110 knots right now, so already a very strong storm here, and even this is shown by wave heights near the center of the storm, which are already maxing out right now to 20 to 25 feet. Now, we haven't had any exact obs on station. This is just straight off of ASCAT imagery, and that's overall a very bad scenario out in this region, so the system has gone under some rapid intensification today, going up from a tropical storm earlier this morning all the way up until now. It's on the verge of breaking 110 knots sustained, so this is a very strong system already. Another thing I want to note is the width of this overall system, extending all the way up here and all the way down towards Yap, or the outer rain band, so a very wide organized situation right now with this system. On these last few frames, we are seeing some dry air inflow right in here, but this is likely going to go away over the next several hours as this starts to move off towards the west into some more warm water, showing a chart right here where we have Megi actually right here. Now this is going to be moving over in warmer surface temperatures well above 90 degrees out here in the Philippine Sea and just to the west of the storm's current location. This is going to allow for even more rapid intensification over the next 24 hours. Another thing allowing for this is the lack of wind shear, shown basically 5 to 10 knots throughout this entire area, all the way leading up to the Philippines right in here. So that's the intensification out of this system, expecting it to get stronger. So where is it going to go? Now, GFS has been my model of choice right here, showing our initiation of this storm off right here, just to the due north of Palau. Now it's going to move off to the west-northwest, then eventually southwest, deepening along the entire way, and eventually making landfall in the northeastern of Luzon here near Bagoya and south of the Babuyan Islands. That's where I'm expecting to actually make landfall, but basically the air of cone of air is still extending all the way from Taiwan all the way down towards Manila. So all these areas right here still need to watch this, and basically, the model consensus, though, is right along with GFS making landfall right along the northern part of Luzon here. And if you ever watched my updates before, you know that I like to use these streamline analysis, and this is just basically showing where the storm is actually going to go, and it's very exact on what JTWC is warning on right now. The storm is going to move slightly to the west-northwest with this trough of low pressure actually building in over Japan right now, moving off to the northeast, but this is going to start to fill in after that, and you have the subtropical ridge building back in, and that's actually going to take this storm to the west-southwest towards northern Philippines right in here. So basically, you got to follow the overall background flow, which is showing right here off to the northwest and then back to the southwest. So a very good tool to use if you don't like just forecasting solely off of models, which I don't suggest for anybody to do here. So just something to note here. Now showing the most recent warning from JTWC here, showing the current winds right around 90 knots, gusting up to 110 knots, and with that west-northwest progression eventually coming back to the west-southwest and making landfall just north of Baguio in the Philippines here. Just basically, though, northern Luzon, though, is going to have to closely watch this entire area right here, as the storm looks like it's going to be making landfall, possibly as a super typhoon, so a very dangerous situation throughout that region right in here. But another thing I do want to note, though, is that the cone of air still extends all the way from Taiwan all the way down to southern Luzon right in here. So everybody throughout this entire area definitely needs to closely monitor this. Even Manila, if this already noting that the subtropical ridge building back in, which is making the system move farther to the south. Now if that ridge builds in even more so, the forecast track will gradually work farther to the south towards Manila and that very populated area down in there. So another thing we also do want to watch, though, is after this moves over to the Philippines, is going to be moving back towards the northwest out here, so basically the southeastern coast of China, including Hong Kong, and all the way down to Vietnam are going to need to watch this after it moves over to the Philippines, though. Now we're going to zoom in a little bit here, showing the JTWC warning in the background here, but I do want to zoom in on Luzon here, just showing the system looking like it's going to make landfall just north of Baguio right in here, and south of the Babuyan Islands. Basically, though, this entire area up here in northeastern Luzon needs to closely watch this system. If this system was to move a little bit farther to the north throughout this region right in here, then even northwest Luzon are still going to have to watch this due to a reverse in the storm surge after the system passes. But that's overall, though. And another thing I do want to note, though, is that even if you're in the interior region right in here, mudslide and landslides is very, very probable. As what I've heard is, though, is that there's a lot of deforestation throughout this area right in here. So if you're in any hill or not such, it does not have any trees in the area, that actually takes away from the roots on the ground, and that makes the soil very unstable. So that brings up the probability of mudslides and landslides and even flash flooding throughout that entire area. So just another thing I do want to note and stress for people living in low-lying areas and on the sides of hills and mountains. And going back to the warning here, another thing I do want to stress, though, is that be aware of your location with the landfall of the storm. The overall storm, if you're anywhere within the basically immediate area, you're going to see very devastating winds. But if you're in the right front quadrant, as we say in meteorological terms, that's a very bad area to be, as the system actually is moving northward forward at about 10 knots, and that adds another 10 knots to your sustained wind. So if you're seeing 135 knot sustained winds, you're actually seeing 145 knots, and vice versa. You'll actually be seeing about 20 knots less on the left side as that winds are moving away from you. So you'll be seeing 20 knots, basically 125 knots. But that is not really much of a difference if you're talking about 125 to 145 knots of winds. That's still a very serious and severe storm. So just do want to note that, though, especially when it comes to storm surge, the right front quadrant, if you find yourself in that area, I would definitely get away from the immediate area, away from the coast, and take evacuations, everybody. That's the one thing I do want to know. Another thing I do want to stress is that these updates are for informational purposes only. If you do want to see the official warnings, check the warnings from GNA Bagasa and JTWC, and make sure you always listen to your local emergency people. This is a very, very dangerous storm you're dealing with out there, and always prepare for the worst and play it safe. But I can answer any of your questions at westernpacificweather.com, especially when it comes to the storm track, but always be safe. So as already stated, if you have any questions, email me from westernpacificweather.com. You can also find me at storm2k.org. Some very good topics of discussion on the meteorological aspect of this system. So stay safe out there, everybody. I'll have another update in the morning, usually much better on my morning updates than in my evening updates. Right now it's right around midnight, so a very long day. So stay safe, have a great night, and see you in the morning. Bye.